So let's start with the cover art by Neil Adams. Very nicely done. The Batman logo on the book is kind of a weird one because it's looks like one that was used mainly during the 1940s and 1950s. There was a very stylized one that Carmine Infantino designed throughout the New Look run of Batman. But for some reason, they kind of go back to this old Batman comic logo. Maybe it was to sort of parallel how Bruce wants to update things by going back to the old way, which in a way, it's kind of a contradiction in terms because he's talking about, we're in grave danger of being outmoded, obsolete dodos of the mod world outside, which actually was a very meta thing because the publishers of DC Comics was, saying the same thing. We're in danger of, losing Detective Comics here because no one's reading Batman because it's so dated. But Bruce kind of contradicts himself, I think, when he's talking about discarding the paraphernalia of the past by reestablishing the trademark of the old Batman. So we have to update ourselves by going old school. Kind of paradoxical, maybe. But I get where Bruce is coming from here because, the Batarang, the Bat Rope, the Bat Shield, the Bat Computer, the Bat Phone, the Batmobile, all relics of the comic book of old and of the TV series. And as DC Comics was really wanting to steer as far away from the TV series as it could. So I found it interesting that they used this logo. I think they're going to use it one more time, but they're going to soon establish a series of Batman Comics logos. There were actually two of them in particular that were used. One was used for like a first year or so, and then there was another one that was used for a very long time, well into like the 1980s. As far as the cover, it's very dramatic cape swinging action from Batman. You always get that from Neil Adams. My main complaint about the Batman costume during the comic run of the 70s and into the 1980s, his costume is just too light a shade of blue. Batman's supposed to be a dark creature of the night. He was originally supposed to be wearing a black cowl, black cape, black gloves, black boots, and black trunks. And the blue was just a highlight color. But shortly after the character's introduction in 1939, Bob Kane stylized the character, made it a little more friendly, and made the blue the dominant color instead of just a highlight color. And that just kept going and going and going throughout the 1940s, 1950s, into the late 1960s. And they kept it up well into the 1989 Tim Burton Batman, where for the first time, he was all in black. I mean, all in black, not just the cape and cowl, but the bodysuit and everything. I mean, he still had the yellow oval and the yellow utility belt. We're going to get, as far as the artwork, I mean, this is very fine illustration work from both Novick as the penciler and Giordano as the inker. The storytelling of this book, and as well as the artwork, for me is very reminiscent of crime drama strips that you would read in the newspapers, stuff like Brenda's Star. Although there are several times in the book, there are several pages where they use arrows in order for the reader to know which order to read the panels. They were experimenting with various panel sizes. They didn't want to, adhere to the strict 6 panels per page, 2 columns, 3 rows, 6 panels per page. They're trying to stylize it, but it's still kind of clunky, because they have to use these arrows to sort of let you know, hey, this is where your eye is supposed to go. This is the order in which you're supposed to read these panels. So we have Bruce looking into Dick Grayson's room. He's really immaculate, except for like the pair of tennis shoes. He has a stop sign and a one-way sign nailed to his wall. Would law-abiding Dick Grayson have stop signs and one-way signs that were obviously stolen off the street? I don't think so. And while he's sort of wistfully looking through his room, he's got the photograph of himself with his high school diploma. He's got some sort of athletic trophy, and he's kind of very melancholy, very sad, and and all the while he's like thinking. I mean, he's in his thoughts. So all the dialogue that's going on is on a thought balloon. And he's actually sniffling while he's thinking. The sniffling is in a thought balloon, which that's really not how it works. Bruce and Alfred are they're fighting back tears, and Dick's trying to keep a straight face. He's trying to make a brave front at it, before he gets into the taxi cab and starts bawling his own eyes out. But he's trying to be jovial as always, and Dick Grayson says to Bruce, "I'm a man now. At least that's what my draft card says." Now, you can't tell me that Bruce Wayne's not going to move heaven and earth in order to get Dick Grayson a deferment just in case he gets drafted into service in Vietnam. But I guess since he was going to school, he would have gotten a deferment anyway. I think my dad actually, when he went to school in the early 1960s, and he went for a music degree. He was going to become a music teacher. And one of the main impetus for him to do that is he wanted to be in schools because he did not want to be drafted into Vietnam. He actually told me this once. So as Bruce is going through the Batcave, we find the Bat costume. It's hanging on a hook on a closet door in the Batcave with the Bat boots just set inside the closet with no sign of the cowl unless it's folded behind. It's not as poetic and romantic as being in a vault or on a mannequin on display in a glass case. He just has it hanging on the door. And again, it just the light blue. I used to when I had Batman comics as a kid. I would sometimes take like a black Sharpie and I would just fill in all the blue of the Batman costume to make him all black, because it's really funny. Even as a little kid, I thought that Batman should have been darker. We have Bruce trying to be very hip for the late 1960s because he's calling Alfred Alf. And there's a line about how he's going to keep track of his business by day while, quote, sucking it to him by night, unquote, which is, of course, a famous laugh-in meme. It's really nice to see Bruce Wayne actually giving back to the community by setting up this VIP program. By doing this, he's doing more good than just being a masked vigilante. I mean, I'm thinking about the character now. The way they portray Batman since the modern age of comics is this obsessive who he just wants to pound criminals. And, because he doesn't want any little boys to, go through what he went through when his parents got killed. And if you really think about it, I mean, Bruce Wayne can do a hell of a lot more good by using his fortune, by using, he does do some charitable work, but I think he could be doing much more. I think he could be, if you really wanted to, he can do a lot more than just, being a mass vigilante to really, if he wants to eliminate crime, there are better ways of doing it here. But, these are going to be, detective stories for the most part as we're going through this run. So that, for me, is not much of an issue. But again, I am glad that he is actually starting to do more than just, pound criminals. He actually wants to help. So what's interesting about this this issue, this sort of new introduction, this new start, we go for 9 pages of nothing but dialogue and exposition. It's only on page 10 where we have a really first bit of action, and that's Bruce being slapped by Dr. Susan Fielding, who is wearing a miniskirt, and she has huge pearls, very stylistic. A lot of the women that I'm kind of looking through, the first few issues in this run, and the women are all kind of they're all kind of drawn like Gwen Stacy and Mary Jane, the way that John Romita used to draw those characters on Spider-Man. Very, very beautiful, very leggy. So yeah, I mean, he gets slapped because he tells Susan that she's too full of her self pity to be of any help in solving her husband's murder. So she slaps him, and there's a short struggle, and there's like a panel where Bruce is basically got Susan by the wrist, and it looks really bad. It just looks really bad in looking at it through modern eyes. But then he's sort of comforting her, and she's nuzzling her face on her shoulder, and looks really intimate, a little bit too intimate. So a little bit, I don't know. Today that could be a bit problematic, but Bruce Wayne, millionaire playboy. I mean, he's not actively pursuing this. My God, she just she just buried her husband, for crying out loud. But he can be smooth when he wants to. So on page 12, we get our first image of Batman, and it's this green disembodied spirit of Batman that hovers over Bruce Wayne whenever he's talking about Batman, or whenever he's thinking to himself, and he's kind of going through the clues in his head. I can just imagine Julie Swartz looking through here, and it's like, we don't have enough Batman in the story. Can you just draw him hovering over Bruce while he's thinking to himself? We gotta get more Batman in this story. So as Susan is recounting the night of her husband's murder, the artist used a technique that was used a lot during the Bronze Age and also probably during the Golden Age and Silver Age. The panels are shaped like thought balloons. The panels are shaped like clouds, kind of like how they do thought balloons whenever there's a flashback. I don't think it's something that's done today. I think it's done more stylistically, probably using a mono color or different hues, or even different artists will jump in and, okay, this is a dream sequence or a flashback, in order to separate past events from events that are currently going on in the story. Page 13, we have another green spirit Batman floating above as Bruce is having his inner monologue, as if Batman is observing the conversation between Bruce Wayne and Susan Fielding, who, by the way, they go quickly on a first-name basis. Again, Bruce is really kind of moving in there. Come on, guy, you just, her husband just died. Just, rein it in. Batman actually finally makes his entrance for real on the last panel on page 13, minutes after leaving her office as Bruce Wayne. Again, that was just kind of unusual that, we had to go through 13 pages before Batman. I mean, it's Bruce and Batman, but I think as a young reader, it's like, I want to see him in the suit. I think one of the reasons why I really became a fan of the Adam West show when I was little was that probably about 80% of the duration of the entire series was, Adam West was in that bat suit. He would have some scenes as Bruce Wayne, but most of the time he was in that bat suit. And, I remember watching the live action Shazam on Saturday mornings, where we would only see Captain Marvel probably the last 5 minutes of the episode. And I was like, I want to see Captain Marvel here. Enough with this, teenage Billy Batson with the mullet and his, creepy old mentor friend, driving around in the RV looking for trouble. I want to see Captain Marvel in action here. So Bruce is disguising himself as various lowlifes, as cab drivers, as bar hops, in order to spread the word to the underworld, much like Sherlock Holmes would do in Conan Doyle's stories. This is before he comes up with Matches Malone, which I think we'll be running into fairly soon. It might be a while, but yeah, Matches Malone actually comes from the 1970s. And then the comic actually breaks. The story actually breaks with a diagram of the Wayne Foundation penthouse. We see an illustration of a sort of an upper view, like a helicopter shot view of what the penthouse, the exterior of the penthouse looks like. And it has a really sort of kind of Roger Dean Yes album cover sort of spaceship feel. And it comes complete with a moat. He actually has a moat on top of this building here. Okay. So we get back to the story, and Batman is staking out the office up on a tree. How he doesn't get his cape caught on a branch, I have no idea. But finally, we really get some action starting on the last panel of page 17, where Batman crashes into the office. At least 2 times in the story, Batman refers to a crook with the generic term of he refers to him as a joker, lowercase joker. It would be a while before we actually see the Joker, but he actually does that a lot in the next comic issue. I think it's funny when he insists on having Susan remove the bullet, and I think she just gives him a. I don't think she even gets. I don't think he's. I don't have time for anesthetic here. We got to get this out, and we got to get it out now. And he's very stoic. He just says, "Ouch!" OW-TCH while he's getting a bullet removed. He's not even biting down on something. He's very hardcore. While reading this comic book, reading Batman's dialogue, and he's very wordy and he's very, explaining, how he deduced, the mystery, the murder, very verbose. The voice I heard in my head was that of Ulan Sule. Because, it's very much the look of the book is very reminiscent to how the character was drawn on 1968 Filmation. It'll be interesting to see how long I'm going to be hearing Ulan Sule's voice in my head when reading these comics. When they're looking at the mugshots of the missing hoods, the tall one who was murdered by the short one, he looks suspiciously like he may be a black guy. The coloring of the photograph is kind of purplish in tone, but he just looks really black to me. And I don't know what that says about any statement on race. I don't know what to make of it. It's going to be interesting to see. Because the next story we're going to talk about the person who barges into Bruce's office at the end of the story, holding him up at gunpoint. He's got a Southern accent, the kind of phonetic way that the comic writers would write certain dialects, kind of borderline racists, really. So that's going to be something I'm definitely going to keep my eye on throughout this run. But as far as the story, there was no sense of the camp element at all from the television show or the fantasy element from the earlier books. I thought this was a very good, very straightforward detective story and a promising start for this new era of Batman.